Hey Ecofictologists, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lovis and today I'm going to do something a little bit different. It actually feels nice to be back in this setup. I feel like I haven't had this bookshelf behind me in ages. Normally I do book reviews on individual books and really I only do them on books that I really loved and really enjoyed because I want to keep the vibes positive on this channel and I don't really enjoy slagging off books necessarily. Just because I don't like them doesn't mean that they're bad books, it doesn't mean that somebody else might not like them. I just don't really see the point in dedicating 10 minutes to telling you how much I did not enjoy a book. But that means I do read a lot of books that never get mentioned on the channel and they might, be attractive to somebody else, or I might be able to help somebody avoid a book that they might not like because it's not their style. So what I'm going to start doing is a monthly roundups of all the books that I read per month. Calm down, it's not that many books. I'm not one of those people who reads 100 books a year. Last year, I think I read 39 books, which is really good for me. And I was really happy with it, but I'm not like Lizelle Sambry, who read 125 books last year. So monthly, I'll be talking about like 3 or 4 books, maybe. Then I will pick my favorite eco-fiction book of each month, and then I'll put them in this little chart that I've put together, and this will be my search for my favorite eco-fiction novel of 2022. I am desperately trying to get through my TBR list. Except I have this pesky habit of adding like 10 books a week to this list. It is rapidly growing, but I'm having fun, so whatever. And it's a really easy answer to those questions of what would you like for your birthday or for Christmas? I just hand them, a selected list of my TBR. And it really works. I mean, this is my stack of books that I got for Christmas. Books that I have been wanting to read for ages, and now I have them. They're beautiful. And I was really excited. It's the way to my heart. It's books and food. Anyway, I digress. Let's dive into the books that I read in January and kick off my search for my favorite eco-fiction novel of 2022. Okay, the first one is actually a bit of a cheat because I did start reading it last year. But I did finish it in January, in fact, on January 1st. So I'm already playing fast and loose with these rules, but I wanted to talk about it and I didn't know how to do it in one of my usual book review styles, so this might actually solve all my problems. Anyway, it's Appleseed by Matt Bell, and this was a book that I read as part of the book club on the Rewilding Our Stories Discord server. And if you would like to join that book club, we've just started reading The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin. And the invite link is in the description below. We'd love to have you. It's open to everybody. Okay, excuse that little shameless plug. I have to admit, I struggled with this book. I struggled with it till like the first half. I struggled with the first half of this book because it is told in 3 separate points of view, and each point of view is a very different time period, era, kind of, and they're very different. It's like, I don't even know what genre to put this book in. One point of view is very fantasy, urban fantasy, folkloric, mythical, kind of. The other one is like a speculative near-future dystopia. And the other one is really far future sci-fi, hard sci-fi, all the way kind of thing. So it spans genre, it spans time. It's really interesting the way this is written. And so I would say the first half of this book, when you're not really sure how all the storylines will come together and you don't really know where the whole book is going. The first half was kind of like that for me. One storyline engaged me much more than the other 2, and that's kind of what kept me going, and the fact that it was part of a book club and I had to read it. But then right around the halfway mark, the proverbial shit hit the fan and it just sucked me into it, and then I read the second half really quickly because I got really into it. And it's as soon as some of the connections, some of the light bulbs go off, some of the connections are made and you're like, I kind of see where this is going. So just if you pick this up, have patience. Have patience for the first half, it will pay off in the second half. And I think it's beautifully written. I love the way Matt Bell managed to give each point of view character a very distinctive voice. Like the pacing of the prose, the way the prose is written, the punctuation in the prose, it gives each point of view a different rhythm, which is really intriguing. And I thought, just even from like a craft point of view, that was really cool. But the stories are all about our relationships with our environment through the ages. One point of view is like during settler times, moving west and conquering the wilderness of America, taming it. It's kind of the last time it was really natural and wild. Everyone is planting it, had big dreams for riches from the land, and that they were gonna be, I don't know, the land was there for them, which is highly problematic in and of itself. And then, yeah, we have this near future dystopia where GM crops might be the only way that we feed people because climate change and our inaction has ravaged the land and there's a global food crisis. And then we travel many, many, many years into the future where there's really only a vestige of life left on the planet because of some mysterious happening that really screwed us over. The book is in turns beautiful and sad and terrifying and heartbreaking. And some of these like philosophical conversations about right and wrong in some of these situations, they had me on the fence, and this was really confronting because you would think you would know where you stood on some of these issues, but he phrased them in such a way that it was like, I agree with everything you're saying, but there is something here that makes it feel wrong, and therefore you are the villain and you are wrong. But I don't know why, but I agree with you. It was so strange, and it really made me wonder where I would sit, which character I would be in this situation. Anyway, really interesting book. I haven't read anything like this. Feels very unique, and I would highly recommend it with a bit of patience. The second book that I read in January was one that I got for Christmas. It is The Disaster Tourist by Yun Ko-eun. I'm really sorry if I said that wrong. This was a really fascinating premise. Basically, all the disasters and catastrophes around the world have been turned into tourism sites, and you can book a package holiday to go and experience this catastrophe, the aftermath of this catastrophe and human suffering, and feel how lucky you are that it wasn't you, and you get to go home feeling profoundly changed and very comfortable in your non-devastated life. The main character, Yona, works for one of these tourism companies as a person who puts together these package holidays until she is somehow swept up in one and experiences it from the other side of the desk, as it were. There were parts of this book that I really enjoyed, parts where I was completely lost. I had no idea what was happening. I will put a little trigger warning here. Towards the beginning, I think it's like the first chapter, there's very just casual reference to sexual harassment at work that I didn't particularly like. It kind of set the tone for the rest of the book a bit, so if that's something that is a no-no for you, then maybe don't pick this one up. It was a bit uncomfortable for me just how casually it was talked about. But anyway, it was a fascinating read for its premise, and for the way that it highlighted that out of every catastrophe, there is someone who is willing to make money out of it. And there is a certain disregard for human life and suffering. There are people who are seen as expendable in the grand scheme of capitalism. And the way we view disasters that happen somewhere else, somewhere exotic, somewhere that you can go and visit like a theme park. They market it as a chance for you to go and do some disaster relief, to, you know, make yourself feel better, to help out. But really, you're just going to parade your particular brand of privilege in front of these people who are actually suffering. So a strange book, a strange book of twists and turns, but I loved the social commentary that it offered, and it was intriguing enough that it pulled me right along. It's a nice short read, it's not very long, so if you wanted to pick this up, I would recommend it because it was very interesting and intriguing. Yeah, I enjoyed it. The third book I want to talk about that I read in January was one that I read on audio, or listened to on audiobook, and it's The Rivers of London by Ben Aaronovitch. And this is really interesting because I didn't actually pick it up thinking that it was an ecofiction novel. I know, I read things other than ecofiction. It's a shocker. It is an urban fantasy, paranormal, supernatural, mystery crime novel. It has supernatural beings, there's a bit of magic, and it's set in present-day London. I've been recommended this series for a while and several times, and recently I've been doing a bit of research on writing, you know, urban fantasy, mystery, crime things. Wink wink, hint hint. So I picked this one up finally. In the end, I think I would describe it as eco-fantasy, but I don't know if everyone would. It goes back to this idea that ecofiction is whatever you think it is. I found ecological themes in this book. Maybe not everybody would resonate with those so much, but I found them. Therefore, to me, it is ecofiction, and it has these fantasy elements, so to me, it is eco-fantasy. Doesn't mean it has to be for you, but it's my list, so I make the rules, and to me this is eco-fantasy. But basically the main character is a police officer who gets sucked into this world of ghosts and spirits and things, and he learns a bit of magic, and he's basically an investigator, a detective for these supernatural goings-on, and he has to investigate a series of murders of, you know, of real people, but the causes or the motivations and some of the suspects are other than human. And he meets the spirits of the rivers of London, you know, the Thames and all these little streams that go into the Thames and all its tributaries and everything. And those spirits and all have their own disputes amongst themselves about keeping waters clean and who is responsible for what, and they all have a very deep connection with water and with nature. This story pulls so many elements of folklore and history of London together into the story that you actually learn quite a lot about London as you read, or in my case listen to, and it's so entertaining and it just pulls you through. So I count this as eco-fantasy because I found ecological themes in here, a very strong sense of place as character, and the power of nature and of nature's spirits, and how our history and our environment are so tightly linked, and they make the cities that now we probably consider fairly devoid of nature, but actually there is a certain spirit of nature all around. So that's what I've found in this book. Even though not all the plot lines had to do with ecological themes, some of them did, and it was enough for me to really feel like there was nature in and around everything in this book. So I very much enjoyed it, and I will be picking up the next one in this series. So those were the 3 ecofiction books that I read / finished in January. I read 2 other murder mystery novels, but they weren't ecofiction, so they don't count here. So now we turn to our little chart here, and I need to choose a winner. I need to choose a winner for January, my January top pick. I think it is between Appleseed and The Rivers of London, because while I did enjoy The Disaster Tourist, it didn't resonate with me as much as these 2 did. And I think I will have to say that it was Appleseed in the end. Really, because one of those points of view just made me think so much, and it really connected with me. I felt quite hooked by this. I felt quite personally attacked. And the ecological themes were really impossible to overlook in this case. They were very central. One of those storylines has really secured it as the winner, as my January top pick. And if you have read it, then you probably know what happens and which storyline it is. And if you want to know, then you'll have to read it for yourself and tell me if it pulled you in as much as it pulled me in. So we have our first contender for the search for my favorite ecofiction novel of 2022, Appleseed by Matt Bell. This was fun. I quite like this format. I already have a few books under my belt for February because we are in the middle of February. I was a bit late with this. Let me know down in the comments what your favorite reads of January have been so far. They don't have to be ecofiction, they could be any genre, non-fiction, autobiography, whatever. Just tell me what you've been reading. Let me know any of your thoughts on this, whether you've read any of the books that I talked about, whether you liked them or you hated them. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. I post weekly on Wednesdays, and I talk all about reading and writing ecofiction. If you like what I do and would like to support me, then head on over to patreon.com/ecofictology and become a patron. Your monthly donations will buy me lots of books, which I love, and they will also support Love the Oceans, a marine conservation organization operating out of Mozambique. And if you want to join our book club, head on over to Rewilding Our Stories Discord server. The link is in the description below. Everyone is welcome. And we have just started reading The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin. You are not too late. You can still jump on that wagon. And that is all from me. Happy reading, and I will see you next week, Ecofictologists. Wink, wink, hint, hint. I did just look at the camera to see how stupid I looked doing my little wink, wink. Don't forget to like... Oh, today's a struggle.